Hi there, my name's Maddie. I'm from the UK, London, and I'm 207 centimeters, so 6'9".
What's it like being a 6'9" guy in Japan?
Yeah, I mean, you stand out everywhere, and it's almost like you're a celebrity sometimes. Some people walk up to me and ask me if I'm a basketball player, and other people ask me if I'm a model. And it's just an instant conversation starter. So I think in that sense, it's pretty cool sometimes.
So you think it's an advantage for you to make friends here?
Definitely, I would think it's an advantage to make friends here, as it's an icebreaker where I can easily use that to go into other conversation.
Being a tall guy like you,
Oh yeah?
what's the pros and cons?
The pros, I think instantly I stand out when it comes to a group situation. I can sometimes make friends quite, easily. When I'm on crowded places, I have a different kind of sense of air because I'm way above everybody else. What else? Maybe some people sometimes treat me a bit nicer because I'm tall, and it makes people feel happy and they smile. So those are some of the positives of being tall.
Living in Japan, what kind of inconvenience does your height bring you?
Going to cafes sometimes, my legs might be too tall for the table, so I have to put it to the side. Or I might have to sit in a seat where I can stretch my legs. What else? I think buying clothes and buying shoes in Japan, is near impossible sometimes because I'm quite tall and I'm also quite slim. So that body type, even in the UK, was quite difficult to find clothes. But I think in Japan might be a little bit more difficult. I thought shoes was going to be a problem, but there's specialized shops in Japan to find big shoes.
What's your shoe size?
Shoe size is around 32 centimeters, so that's UK size 13 and US size 14.
It's very difficult.
Yeah, it can be, especially in the UK. Most of my shoes were online.
Usually, where do you go shopping?
I haven't gone clothes shopping in Japan at all, so I need to try that sometime and see if some of the clothes even fit.
You brought all your clothing from UK.
Yeah, I brought most of my clothes from the UK, and even this t-shirt I'm wearing now, it wasn't from a shop. I had to buy it custom made online.
It's a custom made.
This is a custom made t-shirt.
Is there any difference between being in the UK and in Japan due to your 2-meter height?
So I think the biggest difference is Japanese people on average are a lot smaller, a lot shorter compared to people from the UK. So for people being over maybe 185 centimeters, it's not as common. So because of that, I think the major difference is how people look at me, right? Because it's more shock, more surprise. Me being there. Another big difference is sometimes some doors might be a bit shorter, some ceilings might be a bit shorter, and some tables are also difficult for me to get my feet under, so it can be a little bit inconvenient because of that.
Have you gotten used to the attention and stares from others in Japan?
Yeah, for the most part, I've gotten used to it. But sometimes I wish they'll say it more directly and ask me more direct questions because I'm always open to make conversations. Mostly it's just people saying, "Taka, dekai, mite, mite. そんなになんか高さがあるか。すごいですね。So that's usually the kind of reactions I get.
Then how do you react to them?
I just keep walking usually, but sometimes I'll just say something like, "ありがとうございます." Then after that I'll say 207センチです。はい。And they'll be like, なんで日本語上手ですか? And I'll be like, 8年間日本語勉強しています。イギリスでずっと勉強しています。Then I'll be like, 上手ですね。何年くらい日本に住んでいますか? And then I'll say, around 半年だけです。And then they're like, 半年だけですか? すごいですね. And that's usually a reaction, and then I can use that to push the conversation forward.
So you always get this kind of compliment from the strangers?
Yeah, and then sometimes the compliments are a bit different. So they'll say that I'm tall, I'm slim, and they'll say that my style is good, and they'll call me kakkoi.
Kakoi.
Yeah, all of that all at once, and I'm like, wow, I'm so surprised. I didn't get that in the UK so much.
So you're happy with your life here?
Yeah.
The most weird reaction from the people, what was it?
Maybe they wouldn't expect me to be so tall. Then they turn their head around and they look at me, and then they just see this massive giant, and they're like, whoa.
Really?
Yeah. They physically kind of, react like that.
Because you are too tall, you're standing out of the crowd. I cannot help but you catch my attention.
Yeah.
Actually, what we should do not to make you feel uncomfortable on the street?
I don't know, but I feel like if anybody has any questions or anything like that, then if they talk to me, I think that can be a little bit better than just talking to their friends sometimes.
Talk to you directly is better.
Yeah, I think so.
Comparing to UK, where the rooms in Japan tend to be relatively smaller, have you encountered any difficulties in your daily life?
Oh, in my daily life for rooms, so far no. I was expecting the rooms to be a lot smaller, and because I was used to living in a small space in Japan, in the UK, sorry, I don't really mind how small it is. The biggest inconvenience is just the walls, because the walls are really thin.
So what kind of voice did you hear?
Sometimes I can hear people speak. Even at one point I heard someone have sex.
Oh really? In here?
Yeah. That's how uncomfortable it can be sometimes. After I talk to the person, they stopped doing that as often.
Will you talk to them?
Yeah.
How you open up?
I said, oh, excuse me, I just like to let you know that the walls are very thin. So because of that, I can hear most things going on. So when you usually have your girlfriend coming to your place, and then you have your moments, I can also hear that as well. So after a certain time, can you please keep it down?
Really?
That's what I said.
You talked to him the next day or immediately?
Not immediately. It was when there was a chance where he was like unlocking his door and I was brushing my teeth.
I would like to know, have you ever pumping into things or hurt any parts of your body?
Yeah, so in my share house with the door which opens to, the main corridor, I've bumped my head a few times in that. And then at one point I went to it was kind of like an izakaya-like restaurant, and the lights were quite low. So I stood up and then I bumped my head on the light.
The light.
And then everybody saw, and then they were all smiling, and some people were laughing because he's tall, he finally bumped his head on something. Maybe they're expecting it.
So you're always pumping your head to somewhere?
Usually because I expect it, I lower my head. So for example, when I get on the trains, I lower my head when I get in the train, and also with the little surikara, hand holding things.
Yes, handrail.
Yeah, handrail. I lower my head under that, and then I hold the rail directly as opposed to the little handle.
Like you have to ducking yourself through every entrance.
Yeah.
How do you avoid it next time?
That's a good question. I mean, sometimes I think I'm ducking my head enough, but it's not enough, and then I hit my head. So to avoid it is just to be aware of my height and the area around me, and whether or not I can get through that.
Actually, what brought you to Japan?
What brought me to Japan?
Yeah.
Was learning Japanese for 8 years and wanted to put that into action and change my life.
You start learning Japanese in UK?
Yeah, in the UK.
By yourself, or you went to school?
So I went to language school for 3 years. Each week there was only one lesson, which was only 2 hours long. So I did that for 3 years, and I didn't feel like I was improving so fast. So I looked for other methods to study, and I started self-studying for 5 years. And I used every single method I could find until I found something that worked. And the best method for me has just been immersion and talking to people. The most extreme method to learn Japanese is just watching Japanese media without subtitles. I say that's the most extreme thing because at first you don't understand anything, and your head hurts because you're concentrating too much. But after some time, you're able to notice the most frequent words which are coming out, the start of sentences, end of sentences, and everything frequent, and you're able to then pass that to your unconscious memory, and then unconsciously you're able to start speaking. So it's a very natural way, the same way we learn as a baby.
I know you are a very hardworking person.
Yeah.
How much time do you spend on studying Japanese every day?
So it's usually around 1 to 2 hours. Between that is the minimum, and then the maximum we can go up to 8 hours or more.
8 hours per day.
Or more. Not every day, but sometimes when I have a lot of time, we can go up to that. Because the way I study right now is just enjoying my favorite things. So watching anime, playing video games, drama, YouTube and stuff like that. So when you're doing things you enjoy, but in a different language, it feels like fun and the time just passes by. Because you do this anyway, you know, if it wasn't for, you know, the language learning. So it just gives you an excuse to hit 2 birds with 1 stone. So I'm not going to any kind of school right now. I'm just continuing to self-study, speak with people, and speak with my friends.
What's your long-term plan?
Currently I'm working a part-time job in, you know, a really cool place. I'm not going to say the place.
Yeah, sure.
So currently I'm working a part-time job, which is cool, but my long-term plan is to get into a job which was a similar industry to what I was working in the UK. So something like video editing. And hopefully I can stay in Japan for a longer term in that way, because I really like life here and I feel like there's a lot to learn in Japan. So improving my Japanese, being able to stay in Japan longer, those are my long-term goals.